Is it ethical to manipulate consciousness and subconsciousness through esoteric and magical practices? This question opens the door to a broad and complex debate. Esotericism and magic, two domains often veiled in mystery and intrigue, are frequently associated with practices that manipulate and direct human consciousness. They use symbols, signs, and rituals to exert a powerful influence on the human psyche, often disregarding principles of ecology and safety. However, these practices often conflict with a person's internal values and beliefs, leading to a resistance from the subconscious. This resistance can manifest in various forms, including psychosomatic disorders, where the body seems to send signals of distress, indicating that something is amiss. These practices often employ deception and manipulation in the pursuit of a higher purpose. But is this ethically justified? Can the ends truly justify the means? The principle of do no harm is a cornerstone of any spiritual or psychological practice. It is an ethical guideline that insists on avoiding harm to oneself or others. It is unfortunately often disregarded in esoteric and magical practices, leading to negative consequences. These practices operate in an alternative realm, with their own set of principles and laws. However, if a person engages in them, they cannot expect their soul to be under the protection of the divine universe. The Bible, for instance, is very specific in its condemnation of all forms of magic and esoteric practices. From a psychological perspective, any form of manipulation of the consciousness and subconsciousness, especially when it goes against a person's internal values and beliefs, can be considered unethical. From a spiritual perspective, the disregard for the principle of do no harm is a clear violation of ethical norms. So, we have to ask, are these practices ethically justified? In the following scenes, we will delve deeper into this question and explore the impact of these practices on the human psyche, the principle of do no harm, and the verdict on esoteric and magical practices. Let's delve into how the principles of esoteric and magic compare with those of ecology and safety. Esotericism and magic, fascinating as they might be, often employ manipulative and directive methods to influence consciousness and subconsciousness. These practices use symbols, signs, and rituals that can exert a powerful impact on the psyche. However, there's a caveat. A significant concern arises when these practices contradict personal values and beliefs. This clash can trigger resistance from the subconscious, leading to psychosomatic disorders. On the other hand, we have the principles of ecology and safety. These principles are based on the idea of coexistence, sustainability, and a profound respect for all life forms. They advocate for actions that maintain the balance and harmony of our environment, placing a high premium on safety and well-being. Now let's compare these two sets of principles. When we look at esoteric and magic practices, they often disregard the principles of ecology and safety. The use of manipulative and directive methods to influence consciousness can have profound impacts, but not always in a positive way. These impacts can be at odds with a person's inner values and beliefs, causing potential harm to the individual's psyche. In contrast, the principles of ecology and safety are based on a respect for all life forms and an understanding that our actions have consequences. They promote a harmonious coexistence with our environment, emphasizing the importance of safety and well-being. These principles encourage actions that are in line with our inner values and beliefs, thus ensuring a positive impact on our psyche. The misuse of symbols, signs, and rituals in esoteric and magic practices can also have a negative impact. These elements can be powerful tools for influencing the psyche, but when used irresponsibly, they can cause harm. This misuse can create a disconnect between the individual and their inner values, leading to resistance from the subconscious and potentially resulting in psychosomatic disorders. On the flip side, the principles of ecology and safety encourage the responsible use of symbols, signs, and rituals. They promote actions that are in harmony with our environment and our inner values, ensuring a positive impact on our psyche. In conclusion, while esoteric and magic practices can be fascinating, they often employ methods that are at odds with the principles of ecology and safety. The misuse of symbols, signs, and rituals can negatively impact the psyche and contradict personal values and beliefs. In contrast, the principles of ecology and safety promote coexistence, sustainability, and respect for all life forms, aligning with our inner values and ensuring a positive impact on our psyche. The comparison shows a stark contrast between these principles, raising serious ethical questions. The human psyche is a fragile thing, easily influenced and manipulated. It's an intricate web of thoughts, feelings, and desires, all interwoven in a delicate balance. But what happens when that balance is disrupted? What happens when external forces, like esoteric and magical practices, apply pressure on this delicate structure? To understand this, we must first delve into the concept of the psyche. It's not just your conscious thoughts and feelings, but also your subconscious mind, the part of you that operates behind the scenes. It's like the backstage crew in a theater production, pulling the strings and making sure everything runs smoothly. But when these esoteric and magical practices come into play, they're essentially sending a troupe of clumsy stagehands backstage, causing chaos and confusion. One way this chaos manifests itself is through your body sending signals that something isn't right. You've probably heard the phrase, "listen to your gut." Well, this is a prime example of that. Your body can sense when your psyche is under attack and responds in kind. It might be a sudden headache, a wave of nausea, or a general feeling of unease. These physical symptoms are your body's way of telling you that something's wrong, that violence is being done to your personality. And what's the cause of this violence? Deception and manipulation. These practices often involve manipulating the mind, bending it to the will of the practitioner. They use symbols, signs, rituals, all designed to have a powerful impact on your psyche. But often, these practices clash with your inner values and beliefs. This clash creates a resistance within your subconscious mind, leading to various psychosomatic disorders. Now, some may argue that this is all for a higher purpose. They claim that by manipulating the mind, they can unlock hidden potentials, bring about positive changes. But is this really justified? From an ethical standpoint, the answer is a resounding no. Deception and manipulation, no matter the intention, are fundamentally unethical. They infringe on a person's autonomy, their right to think and feel as they wish. They violate the principle of respect for persons, which holds that each individual has the right to be respected and treated as an end in themselves, not as a means to an end. So what we see here is a clear violation of ethics, but more than that, it's a violation of the human psyche. The damage done is not just psychological but also physical, manifesting in various psychosomatic disorders. The human psyche is not a plaything to be toyed with, not a tool to be used for someone else's gain. It's a part of who we are, the very essence of our being. The damage to the human psyche is an undeniable effect of these practices, further questioning their ethics. The question then arises, is it worth it? Is the potential gain worth the undeniable harm? That's a question each individual must answer for themselves. But one thing is clear, the human psyche deserves respect, and anything that violates that respect is cause for concern. In both spiritual and psychological practices, the principle of do no harm should be paramount. It's a fundamental guideline that underlines the ethical responsibility of those who engage in practices that influence the human mind and soul. Yet, in the realm of esoteric and magical practices, this principle is often pushed aside, overlooked, or outright ignored. Why is this, you might ask? Well, the answer lies in the very nature of these practices. Esoteric and magical methods often employ manipulative and directive techniques that exert a powerful influence on consciousness and subconsciousness. They make use of symbols, signs, and rituals that can deeply affect the psyche. But these methods often clash with a person's inner beliefs and values. This clash can trigger resistance from the subconscious, leading to psychosomatic disorders. It's like the body is sending a signal that violence is being committed against the self. Deception and manipulation for the sake of a higher purpose is not justified from an ethical standpoint. The harm done can manifest in various ways, from anxiety and depression to a loss of self-esteem and personal autonomy. And let's not forget about the potential for spiritual harm. When a person's spiritual beliefs and values are manipulated or violated, the damage can be profound and long-lasting. It can lead to a spiritual crisis, a loss of faith, or a sense of being spiritually lost or disconnected. So, as we can see, the disregard for the principle of do no harm in esoteric and magical practices can lead to serious negative consequences, both psychological and spiritual. It's a stark reminder that any practice that influences the human mind and soul should be undertaken with the utmost respect for the well-being of the individual. Clearly, not all esoteric practices adhere to this essential principle. After discussing the various aspects of esoteric and magical practices, it's time to draw some conclusions. Over the course of our exploration, we've delved into the ethical quandaries surrounding these practices. We've seen how esoteric and magical practices often employ manipulative and directive methods to influence both the conscious and subconscious minds. These practices, despite their claims to spiritual enlightenment or personal empowerment, often disregard basic principles of ecology and safety. Symbols, signs, rituals. These tools have a profound impact on the human psyche, but often they go against a person's inner beliefs and values. The result? Resistance from the subconscious, leading to psychosomatic disorders. It's as if the body itself is sending a signal that violence is being perpetrated against the person's identity. Moreover, using deception and manipulation for a higher purpose is not justified from an ethical standpoint. Any spiritual or psychological practices should, first and foremost, adhere to the principle of do no harm. Unfortunately, not all esoteric practices align with this principle, resulting in negative consequences. Let's not forget the powerful allure of esoteric and magical practices. They promise control, power, and knowledge that's beyond the grasp of the average person. However, we must remember that these practices often involve delving into realms that are not fully understood and in some cases can be dangerous. Consider this: magic in essence is an alternative space where demonic principles and laws often reign. When one dabbles in magic, they cannot expect their soul to be under the protection of the holy universe. It's no coincidence that the Bible explicitly condemns all forms of magic, including esoteric practices. The Bible unequivocally condemns any forms of magic, occultism, and esoteric practices, as well as communication with spirits and demonic forces. This is due to several reasons. Firstly, magic is based on the belief that a person can manipulate spiritual or supernatural forces for their own ends. From a biblical perspective, such attempts are manifestations of pride and an assault on the divine order of creation. Secondly, magical and occult practices open portals for the influence of dark, destructive forces from spiritual worlds, endangering both the individual and those around them. Lastly, engaging in esoteric and magic practices divert a person from true faith and spiritual closeness to God, replacing them with illusory promises of power and control over life. In this way, they lead a person away from God and truth. From the standpoint of spiritual purity, engaging in magic and esoteric practices are incompatible with spiritual growth and a life in harmony with the principles of the universe, and are therefore unequivocally and decisively condemned. Each person has the freedom to choose which forces to join and what to let into their soul and life. In conclusion, while esoteric and magical practices may hold a certain allure, it's crucial to be aware of the ethical issues they pose and the potential harm they can cause.